Bangkok has always been one of the most visited cities in the world. A chaotic blend of neon streets, golden temples, and sizzling street food at every corner. For decades, Americans have flown across the Pacific chasing its legendary nightlife, its endless markets, and its reputation as Asia's backpacker capital. But in 2025, cracks are showing. Tourist arrivals are down, hotel discounts are piling up, and for the first time, people are openly asking if Bangkok's tourism crown is slipping. Thailand reported that visitor numbers fell in the first half of the year compared to 2024. The sharpest decline was from China, a market that once provided millions of arrivals but has now thinned by more than a third. This matters because Bangkok was built to handle mass tourism. From airports to hotels, the city's entire machine depends on volume, and when that volume shrinks, the gears grind. If you're an American traveler, this shift creates a strange situation. On one hand, hotel rooms and luxury suites are cheaper than ever. On the other, parts of the city feel less alive, less buzzing with the international mix that gave Bangkok its energy. Walking through Khao San Road in 2025 feels different than a decade ago. The neon is still flashing, but the backpacker crowds that once poured in by the thousands are thinner, replaced by smaller groups of long-stay digital nomads. Some vendors thrive in the new order, adjusting prices and menus to attract US and European travelers. Others close their stalls early, unable to match the downturn in volume. Meanwhile, air quality is becoming one of the city's biggest enemies. Thick smog rolled across Bangkok earlier this year, forcing schools to close and sending locals to hospitals with breathing issues. For tourists, that means canceled outdoor plans and uncomfortable sightseeing days. Americans used to Los Angeles smog will feel a sharp déjà vu. Only here, the humidity makes it heavier and harder to ignore. Infrastructure adds another layer of worry. In March, a skyscraper under construction collapsed after an earthquake, shaking confidence in safety standards. Weeks later, a central Bangkok road caved in, swallowing cars and shocking residents. For a first-time US visitor, headlines like "Bangkok Sinkhole Swallows Road" stick in the mind. Perception matters as much as reality in tourism, and right now the perception isn't kind. Yet the city isn't sitting idle. Thailand's tourism ministry has pivoted, rolling out new campaigns targeting high-spending Western travelers, especially from the US and Europe. Visa-free entries, longer stay allowances, and marketing tie-ins highlight Bangkok as not just cheap but cultured, a city with Michelin star restaurants, art festivals, and design weeks. And that dining scene really is changing the narrative. In 2025, 6 Bangkok restaurants made the global top 50, a sign that the city is becoming a world-class food capital, not just a street food haven. Neighborhoods reflect this evolution. In Ari, Phra Kanong, and Thonglor, cafes with baristas fluent in English sit beside co-working spaces buzzing with digital nomads from the US and Europe. It's a deliberate attempt to attract long-stay guests, the kind who spend thousands instead of hundreds. For American tourists, this can mean a Bangkok experience that feels more familiar, less foreign, but also more expensive. Still, the heart of Bangkok remains in its street energy. You'll still see monks in orange robes collecting alms at dawn, and you'll still hear tuk-tuks buzzing like angry bees through traffic. The contrast is what makes Bangkok magnetic. But in 2025, the balance between grit and gloss is shifting, and not everyone thinks that's a good thing. Older travelers say Bangkok feels more curated, less raw than in years past. Backpackers complain the city is losing its edge, while wealthier tourists say it finally feels more accessible. For American visitors, that contrast creates both opportunity and risk. You may score a 5-star suite at a shockingly low price, but you may also find the city less authentic than you expected. That's the central question in 2025. Is Bangkok dying as a tourist destination, or is it simply reinventing itself for a different kind of traveler? The answer depends on what kind of experience you're chasing. If you want chaos, noise, and streets that never sleep, Bangkok may feel quieter. If you want culture, dining, and comfort, it may feel better than ever. And somewhere between those two extremes lies the truth about Bangkok's transformation. Bangkok wakes up slowly, But in 2025, you notice the city feels different in the mornings. The streets still bustle, but there's more space, fewer tour buses, and a quieter rhythm compared to the tourism boom years. At Chatuchak Weekend Market, vendors comment on the change. Instead of Chinese tour groups sweeping through, they now see smaller clusters of Europeans and the occasional American family browsing stalls. Some stalls shutter earlier than before, but others adapt, adding signs in English and pushing for credit card payments to capture Western travelers. This shift isn't just economics, it's cultural. Bangkok is recalibrating, rebranding itself as a destination that appeals to Americans and Western Europeans who stay longer and spend more. On Sukhumvit, high-rise hotels advertise extended stay discounts. Digital nomads with US passports book month-long rentals in condos that once catered mostly to Asian tourists. This slow shift toward a Western market changes the vibe. Bangkok is less about sheer numbers and more about carefully targeted experiences. But not all change is positive. US travelers in 2025 report frustrations with pollution alerts, traffic congestion, and the occasional safety headline that makes them second-guess their trip. Take the sinkhole that opened in Dusit district. Images went viral, and for Americans scrolling news feeds, it fed the narrative of a city under strain. Add to that the skyscraper collapse earlier in the year, and perception becomes reality. Travelers want safety, reliability, and stability, and Bangkok struggles to project that consistently. Still, resilience runs deep. You see it in Chinatown, where noodle shops still pack tables every night. You feel it at Lumpini Park, where joggers circle the lake at sunrise while vendors prepare breakfast stalls. And you hear it in the energy of street markets, where vendors call out to tourists, reminding everyone that the city's heartbeat still belongs to its people. Tourist authorities double down on campaigns aimed at Western audiences. They highlight Bangkok's rising dining scene, cultural festivals, and its role as a gateway to the rest of Thailand. For US tourists, that gateway role is huge. Flights from New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago are marketed directly to Bangkok, pushing it as the first step to islands and temples further afield. But will Americans bite? For some, Bangkok's reputation for scams, pollution, and chaos is a deterrent. For others, the promise of luxury for less outweighs the negatives. In 2025, that tension defines Bangkok. The city is fighting to prove it's still worth the journey across the Pacific. At the same time, it leans into reinvention. A new contemporary art museum opening in Klong Toi, Michelin-recognized restaurants, and design festivals give Western travelers reasons to stay longer. And yet, the raw Bangkok remains. Tuk-tuks race down Sois, monks chant barefoot, and incense drifts through golden temple courtyards. That paradox is what Americans either love or hate. Too polished, and Bangkok loses its identity. Too raw, and it scares off cautious travelers. So, is Bangkok dying? The honest truth is more complicated. It isn't dying, it's mutating into something different. For some, that's exciting. For others, it's disappointing. But for every traveler, it's worth knowing before you book your ticket. If you're coming from the US, expect contradictions. Expect luxury hotels offering bargains, but also news headlines that make you nervous. Expect world-class dining, but also air quality warnings that disrupt your plans. Bangkok 2025 is not the same city it was a decade ago. It may never return to the mass tourism frenzy of the past. But it isn't gone either. It's becoming something new, something more curated, something more targeted, especially toward Western travelers who can afford to stay. The real truth, Bangkok isn't dying as a tourist destination. It's changing into a city that may matter even more to Americans than it did before. And that transformation, messy, complicated, uncertain, is exactly what makes 2025 the most fascinating time to visit.